Hi, and welcome to the Improvisors podcast. I'm Neil Thomas, and this is my co-host, Kevin James.
Neil and I are delighting in interviewing improvisers about improvising for you, improvisers. Neil, who do we have on today?
We're talking with Catherine MAGILL.
Great, let's go.
Good morning, Catherine MAGILL.
Hi, Neil. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, Catherine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for agreeing to come on the Improvisers podcast, Catherine. We're really thrilled.
Me.
It's a pleasure. Maybe we should just get straight into it. Talk about when and where you started with the improvisation.
Well, I thought about this because I got a heads up. And I was like, oh, definitely when I was at university doing my BA at Adelaide Uni. And then I thought, nah, earlier than that, when I did ballet, because I did ballet for heaps of, a long, long time. And in ballet, they would, during normal classes, but then in your exam, you'd get to choose a piece of music and you got to improvise ballet to this piece of music. And so I thought, oh, that's where it began. And then I thought, nah, it began even earlier than that. And when I was little, like 4 or 5, my mum had this, are they 45 records? And I think we still have it. And it was called either Movement to Music or Music for Movement. And it was blue, black and white cover. And it was the late 60s, early 70s. So the kids are in their like white singlets and Bonds cottontail undies, because that's what you did in those days. If you did physical activity, children wore, little children. And my mum would put this record on and we would move around the living room. The chairs would get pushed back, the coffee table would be moved. I don't remember doing it myself. I remember the record. I do remember doing it, but I don't remember what I did. Like I remember these events where we, so I guess it started then, movement to music, music for movement, as a little person. Free dance.
Early uptake.
Yeah, that was improv, but performance improv was definitely university. We had a guy come out from America, James Reedy. He was a Hawkins dancer, and I saw him do a performance that was improvised, and it was also Hawkins technique. It was beautiful, and I was like, oh wow, imagine being able to do that. Imagine doing a work that looks like a work, but you're improvising. And then he came and taught us, I think in our final semester. But he also introduced contact improvisation. So I got hooked into contact improvisation and started improvising within that framework. And so then when I went back to Sydney and I took classes with Helen Clark-Lappin and Janice Claxton, did a lot more improvised dance, both within class situations, but within contact improvisation situations. And that sort of took off from there, really.
Catherine, not everybody might have read your bio, and I hope people go to it to read it. But I think, as you're saying, you've got quite a breadth of practice. As you've been involved in the contact improv world for a long, long time. You're a solo improvisational performer. You've done a lot of work with Debra Batton with Such and Such, yeah. And you've seemed to enjoy also a lot of work in group performances as well. Mm. So I think you're outstanding in that way, in that you've got quite a breadth to your practice and quite a breadth to your capacities. You want to chat a little bit further about that, about the domains of interest and maybe what your current interest is?
Sure. Well, I think, like the university training gave me all that composition, choreography kind of background, which is a strong foundation. And then I think it's just ways of staying connected and being inspired and nourished. And, the talking began through doing classes with Tony Osborne. And the first time I spoke, it was absolutely terrifying. Like I went right to the back of the hall. I faced the back of the room and I think I whispered and was so traumatized. It was like, oh my God. Because, coming from ballet background, like you're not allowed to even hear your breath, let alone speak a word. So that was, to let my sounding capacities come out when I was moving was just, you know, that was so strongly pushed down through ballet training and contemporary dance training, because in those days you didn't mix. I think they do a bit more now. Dancers are talking a bit more. So that was a shift into that, and then just found this place where I did this thing that people thought was really beautiful and funny, which, you know, wasn't my intention. It was just what I found myself doing. And then, yeah, working with Debra was just, you know, fabulous, and is fabulous, and inspiring and really challenging. And I think duetting and group work is where I find challenge, and I find that I'm pushed into places I wouldn't go as a soloist, and I have to make decisions and have responses and, you know, find things in my toolkit because I'm with that other person, and that other person is taking me, or the two of us in the usness of it are going into a land that I wouldn't go as a soloist. And I find that really stimulating. And I think too, like after soloing for so long, I'm probably a bit bored of myself, and like I can only generate so much in my practice because I am who I am. Like I can't think like Kevin. I can't muck around like Neil. I'm me. And so to duet with people takes me into that other place. So yeah, I think I'm just looking for, you know, ways to stay in and ways to be challenged.
And one thing I didn't mention then was you've always, I guess, been really focused around community. You've been one of the instigators for community to get events happening, but to glue people together, I think, in a way. I just wanted to confirm the place you played in that.
Thanks. Yeah, I have done a lot of that. Both here and in Sydney, you know, before I moved to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So I used to come to Melbourne a lot to do contact impro, and that's when I kind of started to dabble in classes with Peter Trotman and Andrew Morrish, you know, because in those days people didn't get around much, you had to go to them. So had, you know, a foot in both worlds, which was really great, and then finally committed to being here, which is super.
The thing that's interesting, I think, from the work that I've seen of late is the political nature of it, and it feels like you're engaged with political climate and issues and cultural issues, and that's a point of difference from many improvisers. I wonder if you could talk a little bit around that for us.
Yeah. I think that started in me just like in Tony's class, I used to just rant a lot. Like ranting, and it's sort of like, now I call it dance rant. And I just kind of every Friday just get off my chest whatever was up, you know, whatever was bugging me, and using that. And of course that becomes political, you know, like, you know, I used to talk a lot about rubbish, people leaving rubbish in my street or dog poo on my lawn and stuff like that. But it started to move more and more into, I guess, social issues and more political issues, and as a woman, feminist stuff. So it just kind of evolved. But I did, in the last few years, make decisions around how to bring that more forward in my performing. So I don't work with scores. I never score, and I never go in with a set idea. But I do go in with, this is in the mix, and, you know, I'm thinking about this, or this is kind of upsetting me or bugging me, or I heard this conversation that's kind of got me going. And I kind of muck around with that. And sometimes I might get some text that arises, you know, the day before or the morning of a performance. And I'm like, I quite like that. Yeah, I think that kind of nails where I'm at. But I never make sure I do it. I still just then put it aside and go, if it comes up, it comes up, and leaving space for it to come up somewhere. But I have been thinking more about kind of how to bring that more forward in my work, so that it's present. And I never thought I was political until someone sort of pointed me out in a room and went, really political performer, not a funny person. She's funny, but she's political. And I was like, oh, okay. So thanks to that wonderful woman for doing that. And I think also doing the masters at the moment, doing the Masters of Art in Public Space. And, you know, I can't talk in public space. It doesn't really work. But thinking about that, and that's sort of also been honing, you know, if I want to make a statement, how do I do that? So I'm sort of in that context moving a little bit more towards scored work because I need to nail something, but I'm not going to choreograph it. I'm still going to stay improing, but I'm, you know, working with how do I make sure that content is there, because I have to make sure the content is there, that I'm addressing as something. So that's sort of shifting my practice a little bit, but only within that context. I don't know if that's actually going to spill out anywhere else.
Catherine, I'm just going to read a paragraph from your bio.
Okay.
Because I think it's rather wonderful. Catherine's performance style is a beguiling mix of word and movement narratives, fiercely driven with surprising shifts from steady and serious to wry wit and dance clown. And as Neil also mentioned, and you mentioned, the content is political and poetic, speaking to issues from the personal to the global, e.g. feminism, aging, the environment, and social justice. I read that out to sort of further highlight, I think, the domain in which you perform and practice and strongly speak. I'd love it if you could maybe speak a little bit more about that, about the purpose you find maybe in performing. Many improvisational performers will work with content that's emergent in the moment, on the go, and might be quite just simply imaginary scenes, imaginations that emerge, but yours often feel quite grounded and increasingly purposed as the performance sort of progresses.
Well, I'm definitely in the emerging moment. Like, I'm never not there. Like I said, I don't work with scores, so I'm definitely in the what's coming, what am I in? And I guess it's what I'm in is myself. So that's my content, you know. My content is that, and my view on the world, I guess, is there, because it's, you know, it's all material that's very close to me, either directly personal or stories I've heard, yeah, things I've read. So, and then it's just I just riff on that. I think I just go with it and just and you know, I'm not. I think because of the whole Friday afternoon dance ranting thing, like, I'm quite comfortable with just kind of really going there and just. And then sometimes I've said things and thought, oh my, I think that was just offensive to some people. And then just another part of me, I think because of the persona I take on, I sort of then just go, oh, well, work it out, you know, like, and I'll also take the mickey out of myself as much as I'll kind of play off the audience. And, you know, people laugh at something that I think's really serious, I'll have a go at them, you know, and that kind of feeds the flipping between seriousness and funny and kind of bringing home a message, without it being like, oh, I'm here to tell you this big, you know, like, I don't want to be banging the saucepan on people's heads, but I do feel now there's an opportunity to kind of put things on the table that are within my realm. You know, there's subjects and topics that I just wouldn't go to because it's not mine, and I don't think I have a right to talk about it. But yeah, I think it's just sort of what comes up, and then I go there and happy to kind of flip back and forth. I know in the past I've kind of, you know, gone from, I think it was with Debra, sort of gone from being the environmentalist and we should all save things to then flipping into a character who had this super big car and, you know, really expensive clothes, and, you know, sort of flipping whose side of the argument I am. And yeah, and sometimes, yeah, that's kind of fun because people get quite confused by that, or they totally believe that's who I am. Like, I've had people come up and go, oh, you know, oh, I really, you know, I'm not saying, no, that's theatre. It's not true. Or maybe it is, but don't think, you know, everything I say is actually my opinion, or because I'm often playing with other people's opinions. Is that what you wanted, Kevin?
More than what I wanted.
Good.
I like that. Maybe this will end up being a question, but I like the idea that in some ways, as an improviser, and we could open this up as a thing to ponder together, the idea that we're sort of not responsible for the content that arrives, that we allow ourselves to be open and we can express various voices. And as you say, some of them you might feel they're offensive, and then people connect that voice with you, as you were saying. And I know I was deeply upset around what's happened with Michael Leunig, and with some of his cartoons, I can clearly see he's throwing up different possibilities of questions or areas of investigation or ponderings that is not necessarily something that he would hold on dearly if he was questioned in the question stand. And he was really criticised for it hugely, and lost his job. So that's interesting to think about that. And maybe Catherine, because I want to talk about Deb and your partnership as well. You might like to talk about how improvisation and persona fits for you, and control in the improvising situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a persona I go into, and I did it once outside of an improv setting, and people got, the people who knew me were laughing their heads off, and the people who didn't know me, they were just in shock. Their faces were just like, what is this woman doing? And I had someone come up and sort of counsel me afterwards how I could, be a better person in the world. And I was just like, did you not get that I was in character? Did you not get I was being this woman who was ranting and having a go? Like, that's, of course, I'm not going to function like that when I teach class. Duh. But it was really interesting to see the people who knew me were really going there, and the people who didn't know me were like, and I was like, oh, okay, sort of forgot about that. And at the same time, just went, oh, it's fine. Like, I haven't done any damage because it's a persona. And I think there's a freedom in that persona. I quite enjoy her and different places she can go and does go. And sometimes it is surprising and scary. I find myself going, oh no, I'm in this world, or I'm in this rant that's really not mine anymore. Like, it's going places that I don't agree, I don't believe in. I would never go that far in life, or but it's sort of like, well, she's gone, just going to have to keep running with her now and kind of watch out. But I do think I do feel I have a responsibility that I kind of feel like if I've gone into a dark place or a heavy place, I try to acknowledge that, or kind of bring it round to not go, oh, it's all okay, here's some pink candy floss, but sort of not leave people in a place of angst, but bring it back to a neutral place before I close. Like, I don't think that really consciously when I'm performing, but I think it's there in my crafting of beginning, middle, end, that I kind of go, yeah, that was kind of all a bit heavy, but we can just kind of finish. Yeah. So I think I feel like I do have a responsibility, that I'm not completely reckless. And I'm listening to how it lands, and, have the audience gone really quiet, or are people snickering, or what are they snickering at, and are they really laughing? I mean, I've had people come up afterwards and just said they cried, and I'm like, oh God, I'm so sorry, They're like, no, it's good, that's good theatre, but I'm like, oh, I didn't realise I was having that strong an impact on some people. So, that can be a bit challenging when you find that out. But yeah, I think I enjoy going into that world and being that person, and seeing all the different modes that she can be in, and enjoy going to the extreme, because I wouldn't do that in life. I don't think I'd do that. Or maybe I do. Maybe I'll get some feedback and go, we actually are like that. But yeah, that's sort of a bit larger than life, and a bit caricatured. And I think, the Leunig situation, I think it's sad that people don't recognise that he's a political cartoonist. That's what he's doing. That's his job, is to poke at things. And he should have the permission to do that and get people talking about stuff. And yeah, seeing that what might be seen as offensive is actually a poke at, we need to think about this. This needs to be talked about and not be shut down. But, you know, we're in a funny era at the moment.
And Catherine, maybe just continue a little bit with that sense that art as activism, art as provocation,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that you're now doing public art masters at
RMIT.
RMIT. I didn't want to publicise the university, but that's
Great course. Sign up.
So, and it seems like a simple step for you to go from your performance approach and style and content to public art context. And I'm wondering how what you've done there is coming back to inform your performance. Is there a loop of informing happening there yet?
I'm not sure. I don't think so yet. Like, I'm just coming into it's my fourth semester, but it's kind of my third because I'm spreading it out a bit. And I haven't quite sorted out who I am in public space and which part of public space. And sort of coming to terms with, just if I just go outside and start moving, that is already political. I don't have to do anything more than that. But, you know, the minute you're in public space doing something, it's political because of how public space is set up, what public space is. So that's kind of interesting. And also interesting too that, you know, unless you do a set performance in public space at a set place and you tell people to come at a set time, if you just go out and do guerrilla actions, it's like, is anyone watching you? Does anyone care? And certainly if you're not wearing a bizarre costume and doing something really bizarre. So then it kind of made me sort of think about my relationship to audience and, you know, the need for audience and that I feed back from an audience. And if there isn't anyone there, what am I doing here? So, you know, sort of questioning it. I guess it's turning the lens back on my practices. It's helping me see what my practice is and who I am in my practice. And starting to look at like whether my practice belongs in public space or where in public space does my kind of practice sit, reside, do, you know, be of value, be of use, be anything.
Yeah. So at this stage, in some way, that's an emerging question. It's ongoing. It's sort of your exploration, really.
Yeah.
Often I'll get on a tram. I live on a tram line just for the theatre of the tram. And so, sometimes that's the most wonderful theatre. And if you can just imagine this is theatre, if you just say to yourself, this is theatre, these are all actors, it can be a profound release. So I love that. I love the way you're talking around art in public places. And there's something when things are sort of established as this is a show in the public space, for me, that's always like, oh, that's okay for me. And can be wonderful, a wonderful spectacle, but it's of that duration and it's known. So there's something really fascinating about being on a bus, for instance, and the woman across from you starts spouting performance poetry, perhaps, or is she somewhere else? And there's, for me, that I love that state of ambiguity around public space. So it sort of sounds like you're tickling around that in your MA.
Yeah, I was just in I was really privileged and fortunate to join the Fontys University course in Tilburg in the Netherlands, and our course is called Art in Public Space, and their course is called Performing Public Space. And they were like, well, there's performing monkeys and performing bears, and there's performing public space. The public space is performing. So we went out and did 6 sites around Tilburg, and we were framing the space and how to frame the public space. And we did that visually with frames, but we did it with movement. We did it with different things. And it was just kind of interesting just to flip that and just go, the public space is performing. And like we took stools and we sat down and we just watched the trams and the bikes and the cars and the people and just went, there you go, you've got theatre. It's happening. But then, how do you add into that or draw attention to something, which, you know, people do with crazy costumes, people do with crazy movement, or and I think also too the sort of I'm questioning around, you know, dance that just is dance, that's using the public space as a set and just going, oh yeah, it's a nice set, but what's it got to do with the price of fish? Or, you know, choreographies that are made in a studio and then put in public space, and they don't actually arise out of the public space by being there and finding out. And I remember years ago I did work with Helen Poyner, and she, you know, she was sort of like, don't put your dance in the landscape, let the landscape dance you. Like, what, you know, be that, go the other way. And I think that's what's interesting to me. Is that how's the space changing my movement or my perception? What am I perceiving, and how am I embodying that in that place? And of course, a lot of spaces are incredibly theatrically beautifully, like you just see it and you just go, what a space. And I see people moving in this way. So there is that compositional choreographic thing. But I think there's something else that's interesting to me. I think that's because of being an improviser and being very somatically, like I improvise very much from my body and my moving and my sensing. I don't improvise from my head. I improvise from my whole body, mind, and a lot from kinesthetic stuff. Sensation is where I start.
So, Catherine, almost just picking up a little on, I'll make a generalization. It's a bit dangerous, but so much improvisation in the past has happened in studios, or happened in theatres, or happened in those contexts. But when you start to speak of and let's use a fairly current term, that human and more than human worlds, the way we're embedded in the world. And I'm imagining you having the prospect, and having seen you as well, having worked with you a little bit outdoors at times, that to see you working more kinesthetically, working more from that embedded in place experience, it feels like there's domains there to be further explored and followed through. It'd be reasonable to say.
Like I certainly enjoy working in nature, and I did do a project early in the year with the Hobson Bay Dear Agnes project. So presented an on-site site related. It was actually came from a different site, and they placed it at the Truganina Explosive Reserve, and I did a performance there. But then, because I went overseas, another dancer stepped in for my other two performances because dates got changed and it was a bit messy. But yeah, certainly doing that embodied translation of sight and natural settings is interesting and to me. But, you know, sort of working out how to do that and have an audience or not have an audience, and also that problem of not the problem, that it becomes then about the documenting. Like often it's, you know, there's the live performance, but then actually it gets seen by people as a film. And so there's this other product that gets produced that's no longer. And yeah, do I want to go there? How much do I want to go there? You know, who else do you have to involve so that there's something of the actual event is captured beyond just sort of like here she is moving and it looks a bit boring because it's not done as a dance film, it's done as documentation. So, you know, that's kind of in the mix as well at the moment.
Maybe I can throw in a question around such and such and working with Deb Batton, just swinging it around somewhere else. But talk to us a little bit about the working relationship with Deb. It feels like you've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, we met at Tony Osborne's classes. So I've been in Melbourne a long, long time now, longer than it feels. And I think I'd already met Deb maybe 5 years before I moved to Melbourne. So we did Fridays a lot, and then we started working together with Nikki Haywood, and we were a trio. And then I think Deb came to Melbourne, and then I decided to come to Melbourne. And it's really challenging. Like Deb is she's a really powerful performer, and she doesn't hold back, and she has no fear. And, you know, we can go places that are really scary and challenging for me, and sometimes I think the flip for her in different ways. So it was a really, we're not doing much at the moment because she's involved in the circus and do get along to their shows. A good catch, amazing. Yeah, really, really rigorous, just really rigorous. Like, don't be apologetic. Like, just go there, take it on. And I think it was through Deb that I got bolder and braver. Through Deb, with Deb. It was like, keep up or get out sort of thing, because she can be so huge and fantastic. So it was just like, okay, right, here we go. And and that's great now, because we've worked together so long that there's, we don't, we can have not been together for months and months and months and then do a performance, and it's fine, because we've got such a history and there's so much trust in whatever either of us puts out there. We know the other one's going to be okay with it and going to do something great with it, and that we've got each other's back while not taking care of each other, sort of thing. So it's a really great place to be in, to be able to work with someone that way and just be able to go, yeah, I don't have to take care. I don't have to go, oh, maybe this is going to freak them out, or maybe that's too edgy, or maybe my stillness is going to be a problem. It's like, no, you can just go there and know that we're there together in that thing, doing the work. So it's really great. I miss it a lot. But the circus calls. You can't compete with the circus.
Catherine, how do you keep your practice and your performance alive now? And do you have aspirations of where next, what next, or have we covered some of those areas already? But how do you maintain an aliveness now?
I think I've been doing some practice with a couple of other women, and that's been great, and I think that helps. But I do miss being in the studio solo. I've just kind of realized being in the studio solo is helpful to me, just to do my own moving and my own thinking, and just have the space, to have that sacred time of being in a studio moving. I think doing contact really helps me, like to keep in that world of being in the moment with another, and improing with my contact body as well. I think I just try to find different things that keep me stimulated. I do before I went away and during lockdown, I was doing quite a few sessions with Kim Sargent, sort of body mind centering based stuff that was online, and photography and drawing and poetic writing. I think all feeds in. And I think duetting is where I kind of want to go at the moment, is just getting in the studio with others, duetting, trioing. I've been saying this for years. I'm sure you've heard me. I'm quite keen to do some quintet work, septet. Like do some bigger group pieces, because I just find it really challenging and enriching to do, but also I think it's great to watch. And I think we see a lot of solos and a few duos, and I'm kind of like, oh, I'd love to see 5. And when we see it at Precipice, we see it happen, and we see it happen really well. And so I'm kind of keen to somehow get that going. There was a little group happening before, but it's not. So that I think I'd like to try and make that happen in some way, just for my own interest, because I think it would be great to see mixes of people. And also I'd love to find a musician to work with, or a group of musicians who want to play with movers, improvisers. And I did that when I was overseas, and it's fantastic. There's a group of people who get together, and you put your name in a hat, and they pull out your name, and there you are with a drummer and a saxophone player, and you do it. Then you meet there in the moment. Hello, go. And so much fun. But they're jazz musicians who have got really good practices of also improvising and listening. So I think it's a sort of a combo, but I'd love to go there.
Earlier, you had mentioned in discussion about being in service as a performer, as an improviser. Would you like just to talk a little about that now? Just a bit of detail about that.
Yeah, sure. So I was reading an article from in the contact impro world, and this woman was talking about how when she goes to ecstatic dance, she just does what she wants to do. You know, she's letting out and she's following her own pure impulses and doing her. But when she's in contact, she's in service. She's in service to the duet and the thing that's created by the two people coming together. And she had this image of being on a surfboard with somebody else, and you know, to make that work, you have to work together to make it work. And I think that, and I love that. I thought, oh yeah, when I'm performing, I'm in service to the work, and I'm definitely not doing everything that comes up for me. I'm not doing every sensation, every thought. I'm always watching as to, oh, I've got some text in my head, but not now. You know, and such good text, you know, really wants to come out, but not now. So I'm always in service to the work. I'm making theatre is what I'm doing. I'm not doing unfettered personal expression. I'm not doing what I feel like. I'm not just letting go with my stuff. I'm using my stuff to craft a theatre piece. So I'm in service to the work. And I think certainly in a duet that becomes very clear that I'm in service to what we're making together. And that might mean that I can't say what I want to say. It might mean that I really have to go with something I'm not really comfortable doing and find the bravery to do that, or just go, yep, the work, the piece asks me to do this thing. And that's what I need to do. And I need to have that capacity in my toolkit. So I'm working to have a big toolkit so that when I'm in a situation, solo or duo or trio or more, that I have the capacity to do what the work is asking of me within my aesthetic and, you know, artistic perception. So this thing of like, yeah, I'm in service to the work always. I'm not just free-forming myself and expressing myself. I'm crafting all the time.
So I guess, Catherine, the more we've practiced, maybe the more discerning we become about those type of choices around crafting and about intentionality.
Yeah, and where, you know, if I choose that, the piece will go this way. If I choose that, the piece will go that way. If I go there, I'm not sure where it's going, but that's the really strong impulse. And to commit to that, like to be really clear, I think, and I learned that from Julian Hamilton, was like, if you've got an impulse, fully do it. And then you know if it's right or wrong. You know, whereas if you kind of half bake it, then you're just in this half baked world all the time. It's like, just do it. And then, but yeah, getting clear about what the impulse is, the place of that impulse within the whole. And having, yeah, like I said, lots of capacity. So keep broadening my capacity, you know, and I'm terrified of singing, you know, as those of you who've witnessed me do it, like it's, you know, but I often feel like, oh, there's a song here, but I'm just not brave enough to do it. I don't feel skillful enough to do it, so I don't do it. So I'd love to get that in my toolkit. So having the, you know, all the choices, as many choices I can have in my toolkit, so that when the moment arises, I can go, got it. I can do that and keep the piece moving forward theatrically, and noticing when I need to not go somewhere because I'm not strong enough. It's too personal. It's too emotional. I'm too vulnerable in it. You know, do I have the capacity to stay in my vulnerability? Like, and I've done pieces where I'm very close to tears. I'm sure you know, probably Kevin, you've seen those ones. But I felt like I could be in there. I could be in there theatrically. I was still in control of that vulnerable material. I wasn't cathartic in any way. You know, so I think there's that thing too of sort of knowing how to go to the edges, you know, be in that authentic movement kind of world performatively, and always working the piece. I'm working the piece. I do that elsewhere so that I have the capacity to use it in performance. I'm not doing it in performance. So yeah, always serving the work.
I think we're sort of time-wise starting to reach the outer limits, Catherine. It's been wonderful to chat this morning, and wonderful to sort of have you articulate the details and the breadth of your practice. Neil, over to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, looking forward to your going forward, looking forward to the quintets and the sextuplets, I think it is. Is that right?
Octagonals.
Yeah, and working with music. So thanks so much for taking the time to unpack some of Catherine McGill for us.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me. It was really fun to chat.